There's a version of love that comes with terms and conditions, not printed, not spoken, but understood. You learn the terms by watching what makes the warmth arrive and what makes it leave. Good grades, warmth, bad mood, silence, obedience, affection, honesty, withdrawal. Slowly, without anyone ever saying it out loud, you learn the contract. You're loved when you perform. You're tolerated when you don't. This is conditional love. And it doesn't leave bruises. It leaves a performance contract written into your nervous system. A set of terms you internalize so deeply that you still follow them decades later, in every relationship, in every room, with every person. Not because someone is enforcing them anymore, but because the child who signed the contract never got to renegotiate. In this video, we're looking at 12 quiet signs that you grew up in that contract. And for each one, we'll trace the root. The childhood condition that taught you the rule, and the adult echo, what it became in the life you're living now. A quick frame. Conditional love isn't the absence of love. That's the part that makes it so confusing. The love was real. It was just available on conditions. When you met the conditions, you felt loved. When you didn't, you felt the temperature drop. And because the love was there, sometimes in response to the right behavior, you didn't conclude that the system was broken. You concluded that you needed to be better. That's the performance contract. Love is a transaction. You perform, you receive. You stop performing, love withdraws. And the child doesn't see it as a contract. They see it as reality. This is just how love works. You earn it, and if it disappears, you did something wrong. Every sign below is an echo of that contract still running. Number 1, you perform the right emotion at the right time instead of having actual feelings. Root. You learned which emotions were rewarded and which ones made love disappear. Happy was safe, angry was not, grateful was praised, disappointed was punished. So you learned to perform the approved set, not because you felt them, but because they kept the contract intact. Echo. Now, as an adult, you curate your emotional display. You smile when you're expected to. You say, "I'm fine," with precision timing. People think you're emotionally steady. You're not. You're emotionally choreographed. The real feelings happen later, alone, off stage, where they can't cost you anything. Number 2, you apologize preemptively before there's anything to apologize for. Root. You learned that the fastest way to prevent the warmth from leaving was to apologize before anyone got upset. Sorry became a shield, not a response. You said it before meals, before opinions, before existing in a way that might inconvenience someone. Echo. You open sentences with sorry, but you apologize for asking questions, for taking up time, for having preferences. The apologies aren't genuine remorse. They're residual payments on a contract that charged you for every misstep, real or imagined. Number 3, you scan the emotional temperature of every room before you participate in it. Root. In your household, the climate changed without warning. A good morning could become a silent treatment by noon, so you became a weather station, reading faces, tones, body language, before deciding which version of yourself to deploy. The reading wasn't curiosity, it was survival. Echo. You walk into a meeting and know immediately who's upset, who's distracted, who needs managing. People call it emotional intelligence. It is. But the original function wasn't intelligence. It was threat detection dressed as empathy. Number 4. You maintain a curated version of yourself for public consumption, and a real version you keep hidden. Root. The real you wasn't consistently loved. But the good version, the polite one, the quiet one, the agreeable one, was. So you split. You built a presentable self that met the contract's terms, and you stored the unacceptable parts somewhere private where they couldn't trigger withdrawal. Echo. You're different with people than you are alone. Not in the normal way everyone is, but in a way that feels like two separate operating systems. One for the world, one for yourself. And the gap between them isn't flexibility. It's the distance between who you are and who you were allowed to be. Number 5. You achieve not for joy but for safety. Root. Accomplishments were the most reliable way to activate the warmth. Good grades, good behavior, visible success. These were the currency the contract accepted, so you kept earning. Not because you loved the work, but because the alternative, being ordinary, being still, being unproductive, felt dangerously close to being unlovable. Echo. You overwork, you overdeliver, you take on more than you should and do it better than anyone asks, and when you succeed, you feel a brief wave of safety, not joy. Then the wave recedes, and you reach for the next achievement because the safety was never permanent. It had to be re-earned every day, every project, every performance. Number 6. You can't say no without a detailed, pre-approved reason. Root. No was a contract violation. It signaled disobedience, selfishness, ingratitude. So you learned to say yes to everything, always. Or if you had to say no, to cushion it with so much justification that it barely counted as a refusal. Echo. Someone asks you for something and you feel the word no form in your body. Then immediately a justification engine starts running. You can't just decline. You have to earn the right to decline, because a bare no still feels in your body like something that could make the warmth disappear. Number 7. You feel guilty simply for needing something. Root. Needs were inconvenient. They disrupted the household. They required the parent to show up, and the parent's availability was conditional on your not requiring too much. So you learned to shrink your needs, eat less, ask less, feel less, until needing things felt like a moral failing. Echo. You can't ask for help without guilt. You can't express hunger, loneliness, or desire without a voice that says, "You're being too much." The guilt isn't rational. It's contractual. You learned that having needs cost you love, and the penalty clause is still active. Number 8. Even brief disappointment from someone you care about triggers a physical panic. Root. Disappointment was the withdrawal signal. The moment a parent's face shifted from warm to disappointed, the contract was in breach. Love was leaving. And because love leaving was the worst thing that could happen, the child's nervous system coded disappointment as an emergency. Echo. Your boss gives mild feedback and your body floods with adrenaline. A friend seems slightly off and you spiral for hours. A partner says, "I'm fine," in a flat tone, and you feel the floor shift. The reaction is disproportionate to the moment because your body isn't responding to this disappointment. It's responding to the original one, the one where disappointed meant unloved. Number 9. You monitor and adjust yourself mid-sentence, mid-gesture, mid-thought. Root. Spontaneity was risky. Saying the wrong thing could change the temperature. So you developed an internal editor, a real-time surveillance system that checks every word, every expression, every reaction against the contract's terms before letting it through. Echo. You catch yourself mid-laugh and wonder if it was too loud. You rephrase a text 3 times before sending. You notice yourself being too much and immediately recalibrate downward. The editing is so constant and so automatic that you've forgotten what the unedited version of you sounds like. There may not be one anymore. There may only be drafts. Number 10. You give more than anyone asks for. Not out of generosity, but out of the quiet belief that your presence alone isn't enough. Root. Just being there wasn't sufficient. You had to add value, be useful, be helpful, be the one who makes things easier. Your place at the table was earned, not given, and it could be revoked the moment you stopped contributing. Echo. You bring gifts to every gathering. You volunteer first. You stay late. You do the emotional labor nobody asked for and nobody thanks you for. And if someone tells you you don't have to do all that, you hear, you have to do all that. Because the contract says your presence has a cover charge and you're still paying it. Number 11. You mistake someone needing you for someone loving you. Root. In the original contract, love flowed toward usefulness. You were loved when you were helpful, so your nervous system fused the two concepts. Needed equals loved. If someone needs you, you feel secure. If they don't, you feel the ground shift. Echo. You gravitate toward people who need you, not because you're codependent by nature, but because need is the only form of love your system recognizes. And when someone loves you without needing anything from you, just loves you for no functional reason, it doesn't register. It feels empty, like a sentence without a verb. The love is there, but your receiver doesn't have the channel for unconditional. Number 12. The thread that ties everything together. You don't know who you are when you stop performing. Root. You built yourself around the contract's requirements. You became what was rewarded and suppressed what wasn't, and over time, the performed self became the only self you knew. The real one, the one underneath, was never developed, never given room, never told it was allowed to exist without earning the right. Echo. When the room is empty and no one is watching and no performance is required, a blank opens up. Not peace, a blank. Because the question, who am I when I'm not being who I need to be, has no answer yet. The performing self is detailed, practiced, convincing. The real self is a sketch, a draft, a version that was never given permission to be finished. And the grief underneath all 12 of these signs is this. You never got to find out who you would have been if love hadn't come with conditions. That person exists. They're just waiting for a version of love that doesn't require an audition. If you counted yourself in these 12 signs, the most important thing I can tell you is this. The contract was never fair. You were a child. You didn't negotiate the terms. You just learned to meet them because meeting them was the only way to keep the one thing every child needs, the feeling of being loved. But you're not a child anymore, and the contract can be rewritten, not by performing harder, not by being better, but by slowly, carefully, learning to show up as yourself, the unedited, unperformed, unearned version, and discovering that some people will love that version, not because of what it does, but because of who it is. At Inner Lens, we look at the contracts you didn't know you signed. If this one resonated, the next video follows a thread from a similar root, the quiet behaviors of people who were the family peacekeeper. It's right here.